The Queen finally realized my identity. Her touch said it all. Ethan Cole adjusted the strap of his satchel as he stepped off the shuttle onto the smooth, pale surface of Lithera's capital city. The air was thin but breathable, tinged with a faint metallic scent, and the sky above shimmered with hues of green and gold that humans rarely saw on Earth. He paused for a moment, letting his eyes take in the sprawling city before him. Tall spires of crystal and metal rose toward the sky, reflecting the sunlight in dazzling patterns. The city had a quiet grace, as if it had been built not to impress but to endure, and yet, for all its beauty, Ethan could sense a careful watchfulness in the way the citizens moved. The shuttle's ramp retracted, leaving him standing alone on the gleaming platform. Though he wore the simple uniform of a diplomatic envoy, Ethan knew that appearances could only take him so far here. The people of Lithera had long memories and sharper instincts. Every step, every gesture would be studied. He adjusted his posture, making sure he projected calm confidence. He had been trained for this, but he could not help the flutter of anticipation in his chest. As he entered the main city hall, he felt the weight of centuries pressing down upon him. Lithera had never welcomed humans in the public eye. Humans were considered distant, almost mythic, creatures whose history with Lithera had faded into legends told in hushed tones. Some scholars still debated whether humans had truly once visited Lithera thousands of years ago, influencing its earliest civilizations. Ethan knew the truth, of course, and he carried proof, but revealing it at the wrong moment could undo everything. The hall was immense, its ceilings rising higher than any human building, supported by pillars of translucent crystal that glowed faintly from within. A soft, rhythmic hum filled the room, vibrating through the floor and into his bones. This was no ordinary building. It was alive in a way Ethan could feel, though he could not explain it. Courtiers dressed in long, flowing robes of silver and green moved gracefully around the hall, bowing to each other in ways that seemed part dance, part ritual. Their faces were sharp, almost angular, and their eyes glimmered with intelligence that made Ethan slightly uneasy. At the far end of the hall, seated on a raised dais, was the figure he had come to meet, Queen Alara. She looked every bit the legend. Her presence was magnetic, not because of a crown or a throne, but because of the calm authority that radiated from her. Her robes shimmered like the surface of the nearby oceans, changing color subtly as she shifted. Her eyes, large and bright, seemed to study Ethan from the moment he stepped into the hall. Ethan took a steadying breath and moved forward, aware that every step carried meaning. The Queen did not rise to greet him. Instead, she leaned slightly forward, her fingers resting lightly on the armrest of her throne. The courtiers whispered among themselves, their words soft enough to be indistinct, yet the tension in the air was unmistakable. He was an outsider, a human, and every alien present could sense the difference immediately. "Ethan Cole," a voice said, smooth and calm. It was Queen Alara. Her tone was neither harsh nor welcoming, only observant. "We have not seen your kind in this hall for many cycles." "What brings you to Lithera?" Ethan bowed his head slightly, keeping his expression neutral. "I come in peace, your majesty. I represent humanity and seek to foster understanding between our worlds. I also carry information that may illuminate truths long forgotten here." The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly. She had heard many such words before. Diplomats often arrived with claims of truth or alliance, but they were usually motivated by their own gain. She tilted her head, studying him more closely. There was something different about him, though she could not name it. Something in his posture and the way he met her gaze told her he was no ordinary envoy. "You speak with confidence," she said. "But confidence is easy to display. Trust is harder to earn." Ethan inclined his head. "I understand. I only hope my actions will speak louder than words." The courtiers whispered again, this time more insistently. Some looked intrigued, others wary. Ethan moved through the hall slowly, following the protocol of the alien culture, yet keeping his eyes on the Queen. Every detail mattered. The way she shifted, the subtle gestures she made with her hands, the way the light in her eyes changed when she observed him. He was studying her as carefully as she was studying him. The ceremony began. Lithera had no equivalent of a handshake, but their ritual of greeting was equally personal. Two attendants approached, holding a device that resembled a small, crystalline orb. Ethan recognized it as a scanner of sorts, one used to read biosignatures and other subtle forms of identification. He accepted it politely, letting it hover near his palm while the attendants whispered instructions in a language that had a cadence almost musical to human ears. Queen Alara's eyes never left him. She leaned slightly forward as the device activated, a faint hum surrounding them. As the light from the orb touched his skin, Ethan felt a shiver run up his arm, not unpleasant, just unusual. The Queen's expression changed subtly, a flicker of something he could not yet name passing across her features. Recognition? Curiosity? Something deeper, hidden beneath layers of protocol and caution. For a brief moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Even the humming of the crystal pillars seemed to quiet. Ethan held the Queen's gaze steadily. He had rehearsed this moment countless times, yet he allowed a small, imperceptible smile to play at the corners of his lips. He could not reveal too much now, but he sensed that the first crack in her careful composure had appeared. After a few long moments, she straightened, her voice calm once more. "Your presence here is unexpected, but not unwelcome. The Council has been concerned about humans for many cycles. Your arrival raises questions they may not be ready to answer." Ethan inclined his head. "I understand. I do not seek to disrupt your council or your people. I only wish to share knowledge that may benefit both our worlds." The Queen studied him a moment longer, then waved her hand slightly. The attendants deactivated the scanning device, and Ethan felt the hum fade from his arm. He noticed a subtle change in the Queen's posture, as if she had unconsciously leaned slightly closer, examining something he carried in his aura that only she could perceive. "You will be given accommodations," she said finally, "and you will dine with me this evening. There will be time for discussion and observation. You must understand, Ethan Cole, that my people are cautious. Some may see you as a curiosity, others as a threat. Your actions will determine how you are received." Ethan nodded. "I will act with care and respect." He was led through corridors of the palace, each more impressive than the last. Walls of shimmering crystal displayed images and holograms of Lithera's history, wars, discoveries, and moments of triumph. As he walked, Ethan felt a subtle resonance from the artifacts embedded in the walls, a faint echo of human influence that he could not explain. Perhaps it was instinct, or perhaps something buried in the planet itself remembered the touch of humans long ago. Finally, he arrived at the guest quarters. The room was simple by Lithera standards, but elegant, with smooth surfaces that shifted colors as the light changed. Ethan set down his satchel and examined the artifact he carried, a small, intricate device that contained centuries of human knowledge, encoded in ways only someone trained in ancient human methods could understand. This was the key to his mission, though he knew he must reveal it slowly, carefully, to avoid alarming the Queen or her court. As he prepared for the evening audience, Ethan reflected on the stakes of this mission. He was a human in a world that had forgotten humans. His species had once influenced the galaxy quietly, leaving legacies and technologies that shaped civilizations without recognition. Now, centuries later, humans were returning not with armies or weapons, but with knowledge, strategy, and subtle power. The challenge was to make the aliens understand that humanity was not primitive, but wise in ways that could not be ignored. When the evening arrived, Ethan walked once more into the grand hall. The Queen awaited him, seated in her usual place, but this time her gaze was sharper, more intent. She had observed him throughout the day, noting his behavior, his mannerisms, and the subtle confidence with which he carried himself. Now the air between them seemed charged, as though some unseen connection had been made but not yet acknowledged. The Queen gestured for him to approach. Ethan moved carefully, aware that each step was being scrutinized. When he reached her, she extended her hand in the ritual greeting. Ethan took it lightly, allowing the moment to stretch without revealing too much. As their palms touched, he felt a subtle resonance, a faint echo of recognition from her side. It was not complete, but it was enough to confirm what he had suspected. The Queen remembered something, though she did not yet know what. For a long moment they held each other's gaze. Ethan sensed curiosity and caution, respect and disbelief all intertwined in her expression. Then with a subtle nod, she withdrew her hand, and the court resumed its normal rhythm. Ethan took his seat beside her, maintaining composure. Around them, the courtiers whispered and exchanged glances. The Queen's touch had sparked something, a momentary fracture in centuries of assumed human insignificance. Ethan knew this was only the beginning. He had arrived on Lithera to open doors that had been closed for millennia, and the first crack had already appeared. As dinner was served, an elegant array of subtle flavors and textures designed to stimulate thought as much as appetite, Ethan and Queen Alara began a quiet conversation. He spoke carefully, offering insights into human history, ingenuity, and philosophy, revealing just enough to intrigue her without overstepping. She listened, her eyes never leaving him, slowly piecing together memories she could not fully recall. By the end of the evening, the Queen had made her first subtle decision. Ethan Cole was not merely a diplomat. There was more to him, more than the courtiers or even she herself could yet name. And in the quiet moments as he left the hall, the faintest hint of recognition lingered in her touch and her gaze. The stars outside the palace shimmered like a promise. Humans had returned to Lithera, not with armies or threats, but with something older and far more potent: presence, intelligence, and the quiet power of forgotten legacy. And the Queen, whether she knew it or not, had felt the first whisper of that power in her very hand. Ethan looked up at the sky as he was escorted to his quarters, knowing that this was only the first step in a journey that would reshape the way Lithera, and perhaps the galaxy, viewed humanity. The real test had not yet begun, but already he had made them wonder. And in the world of Lithera, wonder was the first step toward respect. The morning sun spilled golden light over Lithera's city, casting long shadows that stretched like quiet fingers across the crystal streets. Ethan Cole stood on the balcony of his quarters, overlooking the palace gardens. The air was crisp, carrying the subtle fragrance of strange alien flowers that shimmered with dew. Despite the calm beauty of the morning, Ethan felt a tension that pulsed beneath the surface of the palace. Queen Alara had not forgotten him. In fact, he could sense that her thoughts were still fixed on the brief touch they had shared during dinner. He had expected caution from the Queen, but not this deep, probing curiosity. Humans were often underestimated in Lithera, regarded as clever but fragile ephemeral creatures. Yet something about him had pierced her careful perception. He knew that in her mind, questions were forming, questions he needed to answer, but not too quickly. The balance was delicate. Reveal too much and he would risk alarm, reveal too little and the opportunity would slip away. The palace corridors were quiet as Ethan made his way toward the main hall for the morning council. He passed through vast rooms filled with holographic maps, intricate sculptures, and historical records. Each artifact was not only beautiful but precise, a reflection of a civilization that valued knowledge and subtlety above brute force. Humans, he reminded himself, had once shared a bond with Lithera long ago, one forgotten by the modern generation. Today, he would begin to remind them. When he arrived at the council chamber, the Queen was already there. She sat with the same calm authority as the previous evening, but her eyes betrayed a new intensity. They followed Ethan as he entered, studying his movements, noting the small gestures that humans made without thinking. There was no need for hostility, no need for formal challenge, yet her scrutiny was thorough, almost like a test he could not see coming. "Ethan Cole," she said, her voice steady, "you have spent little time among us, yet your presence stirs questions I have not felt in many cycles. I wonder if you carry more than your words reveal." Ethan inclined his head, showing respect without hesitation. "Your Majesty, I carry knowledge that may help us understand each other better. I do not expect trust immediately, only a willingness to listen." The courtiers around the room murmured softly. Some looked intrigued, others exchanged skeptical glances. Humans were rare visitors, and none had come with such composure. Ethan sensed their calculations, the mental tally of his worth, intelligence, and potential threat. He moved deliberately, ensuring that every step, every glance reflected calm assurance. The Queen gestured for him to approach the central table, a large crystal surface that glowed faintly from within. Ethan placed his hands lightly on the smooth surface, feeling a subtle hum of energy beneath his palms. The Queen's eyes followed his movements, sharp and unwavering, noting even the slightest adjustments in his posture. "You speak of knowledge," she said, "but knowledge alone does not endear one to my people. What do you offer beyond words?" Ethan allowed a pause before answering. He wanted his next words to resonate, to hint at the depth of human achievement without revealing the full extent. Humans are more than we seem. We have created systems, solved problems, and influenced civilizations in ways that endure long after our presence is forgotten. I carry proof of such influence if you are willing to observe. The Queen leaned back slightly, her expression unreadable. Proof requires scrutiny, and scrutiny takes time. Are you prepared for questions that may test not only your knowledge but your patience and judgment? I am, Ethan said calmly. He had prepared for this. The Queen was intelligent, perceptive, and cautious, and he would need all of his wit to navigate her tests. One of the attendants stepped forward, holding a crystalline tablet that displayed historical records of Lithera's earliest settlements. Ethan accepted it carefully, letting the glowing symbols reflect softly on his face. He studied the images briefly, then spoke in measured tones. These records are impressive, but some fragments suggest gaps that align with human exploration long before recorded Litheran history. Humans once visited this world not to conquer but to assist and share knowledge. A murmur ran through the council chamber. Some courtiers leaned forward, curiosity overtaking their initial caution. Others frowned, skeptical of the bold claim. The Queen's expression, however, remained calm, but Ethan noticed the faintest tightening around her eyes, the subtle rise of recognition that she could not yet name. "How can you claim this?" one of the older counselors asked. "All records indicate humans were distant, isolated." They did not interact with Lithera directly. Ethan smiled slightly, a gesture of humility rather than arrogance. "Records are not always complete. My people left fragments encoded in ways that required careful observation to recognize. The knowledge exists, waiting for the right moment and the right observer." The Queen's eyes narrowed. She moved her fingers lightly over the surface of the crystal table, sending ripples of light across its surface. "You suggest that humans are not as distant as we believed. That your kind shaped our world in subtle ways, yet remained unseen." Ethan inclined his head. "Exactly. Humans have often worked in ways that endure quietly, influencing events without seeking recognition. I am here to show that influence and to build understanding between our civilizations." The Queen studied him, her gaze intense and searching. She had been trained to see beyond appearances, to detect motivations hidden behind words. Ethan could feel her mind probing, testing him for deception, for weakness, for arrogance. Yet he met her gaze steadily, unflinching. After a long pause, she spoke again. "Your presence challenges our assumptions. I must decide whether your claims are to be trusted or dismissed." "There is much history to consider and little time for error." Ethan nodded. "I understand. I do not expect immediate acceptance. I only ask for your patience and observation." The council chamber doors opened quietly, and one of the Queen's attendants approached with a small, delicate device. It glowed faintly, designed to scan biological markers and subtle energy patterns. Ethan recognized it from the previous evening. The Queen gestured toward him. "If you consent, this will allow us to verify certain truths. No harm will come to you, but it may reveal aspects of your identity beyond what you speak." Ethan took a deep breath. He had anticipated this moment. The device was harmless, but it could amplify the subtle resonance of his human lineage, the very connection that linked him to the ancient humans who had once influenced Lithera. "I consent," he said. The attendant brought the device close to his wrist, and a soft hum filled the room. Lights flickered across the crystalline surface of the table, casting brief shadows that danced across the counselors' faces. The Queen's eyes widened slightly as the readings appeared. For a moment, the hum of the device seemed to resonate with her own senses, as if it were reaching into memory itself. Ethan remained still, feeling the device's energy lightly brushing against his skin. He could sense the Queen's awareness shifting, her perception expanding. Something within her recognized him, or at least the echoes of his kind. The recognition was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was enough to unsettle the careful balance of her composure. After several moments, she withdrew her hand from the table, her expression calm once more, though her eyes betrayed a trace of curiosity mixed with wonder. "There is something," she said softly. "I cannot name it yet. Perhaps I have encountered it before, long ago. Or perhaps it is a memory buried deep within the history of my people." Ethan allowed a small, polite smile. He did not need her to fully understand yet. The seed had been planted. The recognition would grow as they spent more time together. "Time often reveals what memory forgets," he said quietly. The counselors murmured among themselves, some whispering theories, others debating the validity of his claims. Ethan observed them carefully, noting those who were likely to oppose him and those who might be persuaded. Knowledge, after all, was only powerful when paired with careful guidance. As the session ended, the Queen gestured for him to remain. The other counselors departed, leaving them alone in the grand chamber. Ethan sensed that this was the moment she would test him in a more personal way. "You speak with subtlety," she said, her tone calm but precise. "Yet I feel there is more than words in your presence. Tell me, Ethan Cole, what do you truly seek here? Recognition? Knowledge? Or understanding?" Ethan met her gaze steadily. "Understanding, Your Majesty. Humans have long observed your world, admired its accomplishments, and recognized its beauty. We seek not dominion but connection, to share what we have learned and to learn from you in return." The Queen tilted her head slightly, considering him. Her eyes softened for a brief moment, revealing a trace of humanity, or perhaps a reflection of the humanity she had once known through her people's interactions with humans. "Connection requires trust. Trust is earned slowly. Are you prepared for patience, for subtlety, for the weight of observation?" "I am," Ethan replied. He could sense that the Queen's curiosity was genuine now, tinged with the faintest spark of recognition. She was beginning to understand that humans were not what Lithera had assumed: fragile, transient, and unimportant. Humans were clever, patient, and capable of quiet influence that endured across cycles. For the next hours, they walked through the palace gardens, discussing history, philosophy, and the nature of civilizations. Ethan spoke of human ingenuity, of the subtle ways humans had influenced other worlds long ago. The Queen listened intently, her questions precise, probing, and sometimes unsettling. Yet she did not dismiss him. Instead, she engaged, exploring the possibilities his words hinted at. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the gardens, Ethan felt a subtle shift in the Queen's demeanor. She had begun to recognize not just the human in front of her, but the legacy he carried. The memory of her people's distant alliance with humans, though fragmented and faint, stirred within her consciousness. By the time they returned to the palace, the day had passed almost unnoticed. The Queen had invited him to remain nearby for further discussion in the days to come. Ethan knew that each encounter, each shared observation, was slowly unlocking recognition within her mind. It would take time, but the first threads of trust and understanding were being woven. As he prepared for the evening, Ethan reflected on the delicate dance he was performing. Every gesture, every word, every glance was a step toward revealing humanity's quiet power. The Queen's curiosity, coupled with the subtle resonance they shared, was proof that humans were not forgotten. They were remembered, and slowly the world of Lithera was beginning to notice. And as the stars emerged above the city, Ethan realized that the journey had only just begun. The Queen had seen enough to question her assumptions, enough to sense the depth of human capability. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and new opportunities to demonstrate that humanity's strength lay not in force, but in wisdom, patience, and the enduring power of presence. The morning light filtered softly through the palace windows, illuminating the vast chamber, where Ethan Cole prepared for the day. The Queen had summoned him for a private audience, and he could sense the importance of what was to come. There were no attendants, no counselors, no eyes other than hers. The silence itself felt deliberate, as if the chamber recognized the gravity of their meeting. Queen Alara sat on a raised platform, her posture as calm and commanding as ever. But Ethan noticed subtle changes from the previous days: the tilt of her head, the slight tightening of her hands, the way her eyes seemed to follow him not merely out of curiosity, but with intent. She was searching, probing the depths of his presence, trying to uncover what he carried beyond the obvious. "Ethan Cole," she began, her voice measured, "we have spent days observing one another. You speak of humanity's influence on Lithera, yet your words hint at far more than I can grasp. You bring stories of your people, yet there is something deeper here. Tell me, what is it that you truly seek?" Ethan stepped forward, his movements deliberate and calm. "Your Majesty, I seek understanding and recognition. Humans have once walked paths that shaped your world. Over time, our influence was forgotten, our legacy buried. I carry knowledge that can reconnect our civilizations, revealing truths long hidden. I wish to share these truths not to dominate but to illuminate." The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly. She gestured toward the crystalline table at the center of the room. "Then show me something tangible, proof that your claims are more than stories." From his satchel, Ethan produced a small, intricate device, a human artifact that hummed faintly with energy. Its design was unlike anything Lithera had produced in recent cycles. He placed it carefully on the glowing surface of the table. As the device activated, thin holographic lights spiraled upward, forming images, symbols, and diagrams. The queen leaned forward, her fingers resting lightly on the table. Her expression was calm but alert. She reached out tentatively, her touch grazing the artifact. The device reacted instantly, projecting visions that intertwined human and Litheran history. Structures, tools, and systems that had been lost to time floated before her eyes. She gasped softly, barely audible, as the images unfolded. Ethan spoke quietly, narrating as the holograms shifted. These records are fragments of an ancient alliance. Humans visited Lithera long ago, not to conquer or rule, but to collaborate. Our knowledge shaped architecture, energy systems, and early governance. We worked alongside your ancestors to create a foundation that would endure cycles. Over time, those contributions were forgotten, misinterpreted, or dismissed, but they remain, encoded in the artifacts you now see. The queen's gaze never wavered. She moved her hand slightly over the holograms, tracing patterns with her fingers. Her mind raced, piecing together memories that had been fragmented for centuries. Symbols she had learned as a child suddenly resonated differently, as if touched by a foreign yet familiar influence. She leaned back slightly, eyes wide with realization. "So much has been forgotten," she whispered, "and yet here it is." Evidence that humans were not merely observers but partners in shaping our world. Ethan inclined his head, maintaining a composed smile. "Yes, Your Majesty, humanity's strength often lies not in overt control, but in subtle guidance and collaboration. Our influence endures quietly, through ideas, designs, and systems that persist long after we have departed." The queen sat silently for a moment, processing the revelations. She felt a mix of awe, disbelief, and an unfamiliar warmth. It was not merely admiration for the knowledge, but a deeper recognition. A part of her consciousness stirred, a memory, perhaps genetic, perhaps cultural, that resonated with Ethan's presence. "You carry not just knowledge," she said softly. "You carry a connection. I feel it in ways I cannot fully explain. It is as if your existence is a continuation of what we once shared. Am I correct?" Ethan met her gaze steadily. "You are correct, Your Majesty. I am a descendant of the humans who once walked beside your ancestors." The bond is not merely symbolic. It is encoded in history, culture, and even the artifacts you now see. The queen's eyes widened further, and she leaned forward slightly, her fingers brushing the surface of the table near Ethan's. The artifact responded subtly to their combined presence, projecting a new pattern of light, a fusion of human and Litheran design that had never been seen before. The visions were fleeting, yet profound, illustrating collaboration, innovation, and harmony between two species long separated by time. This is remarkable," the queen said. "I can feel it, a resonance that speaks not just to my mind, but to something deeper. Something my people had lost." Ethan nodded. "The truth of humanity has often been overlooked. We are not merely observers, Your Majesty. We are creators, innovators, and collaborators. Our legacy endures quietly, waiting for recognition. That is why I am here, to help your people remember what was once known." For a long moment the room was silent except for the soft hum of the artifact. The queen's thoughts were racing. She could feel the weight of her ancestors' decisions, the centuries of misunderstanding that had allowed humans to fade from Lithera's collective memory. Yet now, here was a living reminder, standing before her with knowledge, humility, and a subtle power she could not deny. "You have proven your claim," she said finally. "But knowledge alone is not enough. Influence requires trust, cooperation, and the ability to inspire others. Can your people guide without overwhelming, teach without commanding?" Ethan smiled, sensing the depth of her insight. "Yes, humans have always thrived through observation, problem-solving, and collaboration. We lead by example, innovate with careful thought, and respect the autonomy of those we work alongside. Our influence is quiet but enduring." The queen nodded slowly. She studied him with renewed intensity, as if measuring every word against centuries of history. "Then perhaps it is time to reveal more than fragments. Perhaps it is time to show the council what you truly represent." Ethan's eyes met hers, steady and unwavering. He had anticipated this moment. It was the first step toward full recognition, a chance to connect humanity's legacy with Lithera's present. "I am ready, Your Majesty. I have waited for the right moment, and I will proceed with care and respect." The queen stood, her presence commanding and serene. "Then we shall proceed. But know this, the council is wary. Some may not accept what you bring, no matter how compelling. Others may resist out of fear, envy, or disbelief. You must demonstrate not only knowledge, but the wisdom to navigate these challenges." "I understand," Ethan said quietly. In the following hours, the queen led Ethan to a hall where holographic displays and ancient artifacts were carefully arranged. The council would convene here, but before that, the queen wanted to test Ethan's approach in a controlled environment. She gestured to a display of intricate Litharan designs, some of which had puzzled scholars for centuries. "Observe these systems," she said. "Tell me what you see." Ethan approached the display, studying the patterns carefully. He pointed to structural alignments that mirrored designs used by humans millennia ago on distant worlds. "These patterns are not accidental," he said. "They reflect principles of efficiency, stability, and harmony, concepts humans applied in architecture, engineering, and energy systems. Your ancestors may have adapted these ideas, sometimes unconsciously, but the influence is unmistakable." The queen's eyes widened slightly. She traced a finger along one of the patterns, recognizing the subtle echoes of a human touch embedded in her world's designs. "It is true. Our systems, our methods, we were unknowingly guided by your kind." Ethan nodded. "Yes. Humanity often works quietly, leaving legacies that endure through time. Recognition comes slowly, but the impact is lasting." The queen studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable yet filled with a growing understanding. She had felt the artifact's resonance, observed Ethan's knowledge, and now saw tangible proof of human influence. For the first time in many cycles, she felt the stirrings of awe, respect, and a strange sense of familiarity. "You have done well today," she said finally. "You have not only demonstrated knowledge, but patience, humility, and insight. These qualities are rare even among your kind. They are qualities my people need to remember and perhaps to embrace once more." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I have come to share what humanity has achieved, and to help your people see that our legacy endures not through force, but through thought, creativity, and cooperation." The queen nodded, her gaze softening. "Tomorrow, we will begin to share these revelations with the council. But for now, you have earned a measure of trust. I sense that the path ahead, while challenging, holds potential for understanding that neither of our peoples have seen for cycles." Ethan felt a quiet satisfaction. The queen's recognition, however partial, was a breakthrough. She was beginning to perceive humanity not as distant observers, but as intelligent, capable, and enduring contributors to the galaxy's history. As he left the chamber, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the palace gardens. Ethan paused for a moment, letting the cool evening air brush his face. The artifact in his satchel hummed faintly, a quiet reminder of the knowledge it carried. The queen had seen a glimpse, but the full story was still to unfold. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Ethan felt prepared. Each conversation, each demonstration of human ingenuity was a step toward full recognition. Lithra was beginning to remember, and the queen's growing awareness was the key to opening the doors that had been closed for centuries. Humans had returned, quietly, thoughtfully, and with purpose. Their presence was subtle but undeniable. And the queen, for all her intelligence and caution, had felt the first unmistakable stirrings of something she could not yet name. A legacy, a bond, a resonance that connected her people to humans in ways she had long forgotten. Ethan looked toward the horizon, where the twin moons of Lithra began to rise, casting silver light across the city. The journey was far from over, but the first threads of recognition were in place. Humanity's legacy was stirring awake, and with patience, insight, and wisdom, it would guide Lithra, and perhaps the galaxy, toward a future shaped not by fear or force, but by understanding and collaboration. And as the stars appeared in the alien sky, Ethan felt a quiet certainty. The queen's recognition was growing. The legacy of humanity was beginning to unfold. And when the council finally witnessed the truth, the world would remember what humans had quietly achieved long before. The council chamber buzzed quietly with anticipation. Lithra's leaders had gathered, their angular faces tense, their voices lowered in speculation. The rumors of Ethan Cole's claims had spread quickly. Humans were rare visitors, almost mythical figures, and now one stood in the palace, demonstrating knowledge and influence that challenged centuries of accepted history. Some counselors were eager to investigate, others were skeptical, ready to dismiss him as clever, but ultimately inconsequential. Ethan entered the chamber with Queen Alara by his side. He moved with calm assurance, aware that every step, every gesture would be scrutinized. The Queen had been guiding him carefully, and her trust, though growing, was still measured. She was cautious because her duty to her people required it. Yet beneath that caution, a spark of recognition glimmered in her eyes, an awareness that Ethan carried the legacy of a long-forgotten alliance between humans and Litherans. The council members exchanged glances as Ethan approached the central table. Their eyes lingered on the small artifact in his satchel, which emitted a faint hum, hinting at power and knowledge beyond their understanding. Some leaned forward in curiosity, others crossed their arms, skeptical of what a human could teach them. Queen Alara raised a hand, silencing the room. "Counselors," she said, her voice calm but commanding, "we have received a visitor who claims knowledge of our history that many of you have not considered. He comes not to challenge us, but to remind us of truths long forgotten." Ethan inclined his head respectfully. "Your Majesty, counselors, I do not seek to undermine your knowledge or authority. I am here to share information that may help us understand each other, and to show how humanity's legacy has quietly influenced your civilization." A senior counselor, an older Litheran with sharp eyes, spoke first. "We have lived for many cycles without the aid of humans. Why should we believe that your presence and your claims are more than mere stories?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Because stories alone do not align so perfectly with your historical patterns, your architecture, your governance. Humans once walked beside your ancestors. We collaborated, shared knowledge, and helped build systems that endure even today. I bring proof, and I will show it to you now." He set the artifact on the crystalline table. Its hum deepened as it activated, projecting holographic images of ancient Litheran cities, human settlements, and the subtle designs that had influenced Litheran technology. Symbols, energy systems, and architectural structures shimmered in the air. The counselors leaned in, some with disbelief, others with fascination. Ethan narrated as the images moved, connecting past human actions with Litheran developments. "Your cities, your energy networks, your methods of organizing societies. These bear patterns first developed by humans, shared long ago as a gesture of collaboration. Your people adapted and expanded upon them, and now they are considered uniquely Litheran. But the origin is clear," a younger counselor whispered to another. "Could this be true? Could humans have shaped our civilization and we never noticed?" The senior counselor's brow furrowed. "It is difficult to accept. We have long believed in our independence and self-sufficiency." Queen Alara's gaze remained fixed on Ethan. "Do you see?" she said quietly. "The pattern emerging, the knowledge is precise, and the connections are undeniable. This is not a story. This is history revealed in ways our records never captured." Ethan nodded. "Exactly. Humans do not seek recognition lightly. Our influence is quiet, enduring, and designed to support, not to dominate. We help civilizations grow without imposing control. That is the human way." The artifact's light shifted, now projecting images of human-alien collaboration, engineering projects, energy networks, education systems. Even subtle cultural exchanges, art, music, philosophy, appeared, revealing a depth of cooperation that had long been forgotten. Counselors whispered among themselves, some skeptical, some amazed. The senior counselor finally spoke. "If what you say is true, then humanity's influence is greater than we imagined. But why now? Why reveal this after so many cycles?" Ethan met his gaze. "Because time has revealed the need. Humanity returned not to dominate, but to reconnect. We see the value of collaboration, and we wish to offer our knowledge to those willing to accept it. The past may have been forgotten, but the present offers an opportunity to learn and grow together." Queen Alara stepped forward, placing her hand gently on Ethan's shoulder. The artifact responded subtly, projecting a final image, a fusion of human and Litheran designs. The council members gasped as the hologram shifted, illustrating not just collaboration, but a future where humans and Litherans work together, combining strengths, creativity, and wisdom. "I recognize him," the Queen said quietly. Her voice carried a weight that silenced the murmurs. "Not as a visitor, not as an envoy. He is the continuation of what our ancestors once shared with humans. His presence is not accidental. He carries the legacy of collaboration, intelligence, and subtle power. The council stared, stunned. The words were simple, but they carried authority. Recognition of humans, of their ingenuity, influence, and enduring presence, had not occurred in centuries. Now it was undeniable. Ethan bowed slightly, acknowledging the Queen's words. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Recognition is the first step. Understanding and collaboration follow. Humanity's legacy is not about dominance. It is about partnership, creativity, and the enduring influence of thought, innovation, and presence." The younger counselor spoke again, this time with genuine curiosity. "And what do you expect from us? What does humanity seek in return?" Ethan's expression remained calm. "Nothing beyond what all civilizations seek: understanding, cooperation, and a chance to build a future together. Humans do not demand obedience or tribute. We share knowledge and we ask for trust." The senior counselor finally nodded, his expression softening. "Perhaps we have underestimated your kind. Perhaps the stories of our history have been incomplete." The Queen turned to the council, her voice commanding. "Let this be a lesson. Recognition is not weakness, nor is collaboration a threat. We can embrace what humans offer, not with fear, but with wisdom. Humanity's presence here today is proof that we are stronger together than apart." A hush fell over the chamber as counselors considered her words. The artifact continued to glow softly, projecting images of past and potential futures. Ethan observed quietly, knowing that the Queen's recognition had opened the door. Soon, the Council would understand not just the history, but the enduring potential of humanity's influence. By evening, the chamber was quiet once more. The Council had dispersed, many still deep in thought. The Queen remained seated, her eyes on Ethan, and for the first time she allowed herself a small, genuine smile. "You have done more than I expected," she said. "You have reminded my people of truths they had forgotten, and you have shown me that humans are not distant but integral to our history." Ethan inclined his head. "That is all I wish for, Your Majesty. To be remembered and to help others understand the depth of humanity's quiet power." The Queen rose and walked with him to the palace balcony. The stars had begun to shine over Lithera, casting silver light across the city. She looked out at the horizon, then back at him. "There is still much to explore, much to understand, but today a foundation has been laid. Humanity is no longer forgotten, and for that I am grateful." Ethan smiled softly. "The journey has just begun, but recognition, once given, grows quickly. Your people will see the value of collaboration, of creativity, and of quiet strength. They will remember humanity not as a myth, but as a force of understanding and innovation." The Queen's hand touched his lightly, a gesture of both acknowledgement and trust. Ethan felt the resonance once more, faint but unmistakable, a connection that bridged species, time, and history. Humanity's legacy was awakening, and the Queen had felt it first. As they stood together, the twin moons of Lithera rose in the sky, casting silver light over the city. Ethan knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but the path was clear. Humans were no longer observers. Their influence had returned, subtle yet undeniable. And the Queen's recognition would guide the way. The days that followed were filled with quiet activity and careful observation. Ethan moved through Lithera's capital with purpose, sharing insights with scholars, engineers, and educators. Each demonstration, each lesson, revealed more of humanity's ingenuity and subtle influence. He showed methods of problem-solving that relied on observation, creativity, and collaboration. He demonstrated ways of designing systems that were efficient yet adaptable, teaching without commanding, inspiring without coercion. The Queen observed every interaction closely. Each time Ethan spoke, each time he revealed a new layer of human knowledge, her recognition deepened. She realized that humans were not merely intelligent. They were adaptable, patient, and capable of shaping civilizations through ideas rather than force. Her respect grew, and with it, a desire to integrate this knowledge into Lithera's future. One morning, the Queen summoned the council once more. "Today," she said, "you will witness not only proof of human influence, but the potential for cooperation that can shape our future." Ethan stepped forward, his presence calm and assured. He activated the artifact, which projected complex systems of energy distribution, architectural design, and governance that humans had once shared with Lithera. The council watched, some in disbelief, others in wonder, as the holographic images illustrated a past partnership and a possible future of collaboration. This, Ethan said quietly, is what humanity offers, not domination, not control, but insight, strategy, and creativity. These tools can guide your civilization, not by replacing your achievements, but by enhancing them. Humans are not distant observers. We are partners, collaborators, and innovators. The counselors exchanged glances. Some nodded slowly, their skepticism giving way to curiosity. Others remained cautious, but even they could not deny the coherence of the evidence before them. Queen Alara stepped forward, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You have proven your legacy," she said. "You have reminded us of truths we had forgotten. Humanity is no longer a myth, but a partner, and we shall honor that partnership not with fear, but with respect." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Recognition is the first step. Cooperation follows naturally when trust is established." Over the next cycles, humans and Litherans began to collaborate openly. Scholars worked together on projects, engineers shared designs, and educators exchanged methods of teaching and learning. Ethan's presence became a symbol of humanity's quiet power, the ability to influence and inspire without force, to lead through wisdom and understanding. The Queen observed these developments with pride. She had felt the first stirrings of human influence through the touch of a hand, the demonstration of knowledge, and the careful guidance of one human who embodied the best qualities of his species. Lithra was remembering what it had once known, that humans were clever, adaptable, and enduring. One evening, as Ethan and the Queen walked through the palace gardens, the twin moons casting silver light across the blossoms, she spoke softly. "You have done more than I imagined. You have reminded us that humanity's strength lies not in arms or aggression, but in thought, creativity, and presence. I feel it now, fully. Your kind is not merely part of history, you are part of our future." Ethan smiled gently. "That is all humanity seeks, Your Majesty. To be remembered, to share knowledge, and to help others grow. We leave the rest to the choices of those who are ready to embrace it." The Queen placed her hand lightly on his, the gesture no longer formal but genuine. In that moment, the resonance of centuries of forgotten collaboration flowed between them. Humanity's influence was not just recognized, it was embraced. Across Lithra, the message spread. Humans were no longer distant observers nor myths of the past. They were partners, guides, and innovators. Cities, systems, and schools reflected the quiet brilliance of humanity's approach, thoughtful, patient, and enduring. Ethan stood on the balcony of the palace one final evening, gazing at the stars. Humanity had returned not with weapons, not with threats, but with knowledge, insight, and presence. The Queen had recognized it first, and now the galaxy would begin to remember. And as the moons rose, casting silver light over the city, Ethan knew this was only the beginning. Humans had returned, quietly but powerfully, to shape a future not through force, but through understanding, creativity, and enduring influence. The universe had seen the subtle power of humanity, and it would never forget again.